All right, so here we're going to go over the binding procedure to bind your transmitter to the receiver. Before I start on that, I do want to mention we are recording on our prototype build. So the receiver in this one is down in a little cranny down here. But on the production model, the receiver will be more here in the back and you'll have more access to it. But the procedure for binding is going to be exactly the same. So to get started, you need to apply power to the drone. That way the receiver will power on. We'll do that here. And then to set the receiver into bind mode, it has a little button on there. You just press it. You don't have to hold it. It's just a simple press to it. And now it's flashing green, showing that it's in bind mode. So I have the Tyrannus X9D. If you have a different transmitter, it might be just a little bit different on the menus, but I'll show you kind of the basics on mine.
One thing I want to mention is that with this system, we do suggest that you get some variant of the X9D.
Yeah, it works the best with CROSSFIRE. So once we have the radio powered on, we'll hold down menu, and it gives us a little menu there. The very first one being CROSSFIRE. We'll click on that, and then from there you'll see CROSSFIRE Micro TX. We'll just give that a click, and then you'll scroll down right here to where it says binding. Click on that, and it'll go into bind mode. Update receiver is pretty common depending on the version you have on your CROSSFIRE. And so we'll just hit enter for yes and let that go through the update procedure. Now keep in mind that we are going to be selling these with diversity receivers, so you want your CROSSFIRE to be updated to 2.93 or higher, or you will damage the receiver in the update process. All right, now it's done. The firmware is loaded. We are bound to the receiver. If you just go back a menu. All right, once it's bound, if you just exit out of that menu, like I've done here, it will show that you have a CROSSFIRE Nano, or if it's the Diversity that will be supplied with this, it'll say CROSSFIRE Diversity right there, showing that it's bound. Also, to know that it's properly bound, you can see the light on the receiver down here has turned solid green, and that shows that you are now bound to the transmitter. All right, so now that we've gotten into beta flight here, there's really only a couple menus that you need to go into. Just follow the cursor here on screen. I'll talk about rates first. And for that, we'll go over here to the left side to PID tuning. And you'll hit rate profile settings right here. Now this is going to be your adjustments for how quick or how slow your drone will react in the air. And below all of these numbers here is kind of your graph showing what it's doing. So here in the center, this is going to be the sensitivity on the very center movement of the stick, and as the graph goes out, it gets steeper and more extreme, so a little bit faster as you get towards the end of the stick movements. So to adjust these, you can see just simple movements are making my degrees per second go up. Okay, and we'll just put those back to where they were. That's where I like it. So you can add exponential, which will increase, it will increase the sensitivity or decrease the sensitivity on center stick. So this will just kind of be something that you'll want to play with and kind of get the feel of it, and kind of test with it a little bit, see what you like. There's just a lot of different adjustments you can make there to make the sticks feel a little bit better. From there, we'll move on to your receiver tab. All right, so once you're in the receiver tab, and you have your transmitter powered on and bound to the money shot, you'll be able to see in the receiver tab that you have stick movement on there. Okay, so for this, you're able to power the receiver off of the power of the computer when it's plugged into the flight controller. So you will not need to have your battery packs plugged into the drone. So here is a really important part of setting up your transmitter to the drone. You can see whenever I move the sticks at full forward for throttle, it's at 2,000, and at full down on the throttle, it's at 1,000. And this is what all your roll, pitch, yaw, and throttle endpoints need to be. So you can see if I do roll, it's at 1,000, 2,000, same with pitch, 2,000, 1,000, and yaw as well. And this is very important. If your throttle is not at 1,000 or just below, you will not be able to arm your quad. In order to adjust those endpoints, you will go into your transmitter settings. That's not a setting that you do on Betaflight, but in your transmitter settings, you need to go off, as you're adjusting in your transmitter, you need to go off the numbers on the Betaflight screen. So that has to be open when you do that. And I'll go over that here in just a moment on my transmitter on how to do that. But before I go into that, I also want to mention that here is where you can see what switch is what. So that switch is my auxiliary 2, and then I've got an auxiliary 1. And this will be very important to have switches set up for a later part of this video. And I'll stop here and we'll go into the transmitter and I'll show you how to adjust endpoints. Boom, nailed it.
There we go.
All right.
And we film that, which will be later.
Okay. Now, once you're confident that all your endpoints are good, I do also need to mention that your center point on your controls also needs to be set at 1500. Okay, so you want that to be as close to 1500 as you can. Otherwise, when the quad is flying in the air, it may tend to drift a little bit without any stick movement. So that needs to be set up there as well. What's that? Oh, yeah. Okay, I'll start over. But that doesn't need to be mentioned. I have that set up for them. And it's if they have this up to 1500, it won't bother them. All right, so where did I leave off? What was I saying? Let's see. So now that you're confident, you've got your switches set up, and your endpoints are all looking good on this tab. Then we'll go over and I'll show you how to set up your switches for arming and pre-arm. But before we get into that, I do also want to mention, I forgot to say that your center point of your sticks needs to be at 1500. If they're not set at 1500 on all of those for center point, then your drone may tend to drift a little bit. Now, I do have it set up to where you have a little leeway using RC deadband. So if it's not exactly 1500, you're still going to be fine. So from here, after you set up your endpoints and everything looks good there, we'll actually go into our modes tab, and this is where you're going to set up your switches. So for mine, the first one you're going to want to make sure that's set up is down here. It's pre-arm, and I have it automatically set to auxiliary 2. And on the controller with the switch pushed all the way forward is going to be off. And I have it set to where if I pull the switch towards me all the way, you can see how that went yellow. That means pre-arm is now on. Okay, so that's one switch you need to set up. And then on another switch, you'll want to set up arm, okay? Now I have that one set to auxiliary 1. Now keep in mind in Betaflight here, since we're not powering this drone up with the battery, you can move this switch without worry of arming the drone because there's no power going to it. But I have mine set up to auxiliary 1. Switch down is unarmed, and switch towards me is arm. And you can see that arming is disabled there. So those are the two switches that you need to be able to set up in order to get you airborne.
Here I'm going to show you how to get to the proper menu to be able to set up your endpoints that you'll see in beta flight. But you do need to make those adjustments here in the transmitter. Real simple to do. Once you have your transmitter turned on, you'll just go into click menu once, and then you'll click page up. And we'll just keep going until we get to the outputs menu. Now all you'll have to worry about is channel 1 through 4, and that's going to be your pitch, roll, yaw, and throttle. And to adjust these, you'll click on the channel that you want to change, and you'll see a little number up here at the top too, and you can wiggle your sticks to figure out which one you're adjusting since they're not labeled. But so for that first one is going to be my roll. So you'll click on that, and then you'll just scroll over. Sub-trim is going to be what adjusts your center stick, and you'll want that to be on 1500. And then the next two, your minimum, getting a little crazy there. Your minimum is going to be your stick low point, so down like that. And maximum is going to be your stick high point, like that. But when you're doing yaw or roll, your low point is actually going to be to the left, and your high point is actually going to be to the right there. And so you'll want to make sure that that all looks good. Now please keep in mind you do want to use the numbers on your beta flight screen, not the numbers that are showing here at the top, because they a lot of times don't match. But once you get those set up, you should be good to go.